Hey folks, and welcome back to Letters for Now. This is Dan. Well, there's a moment I find myself in. Maybe you've been there too. It's late, the kids are asleep, the dishes are done, the kitchen light's still on, and I tell myself I'll check the news for just a minute, see what's happening since dinner. And a minute turns into 10, then 20, and then I've completely lost track of time. And somewhere in that scroll, I feel it. A tightening in my chest and a low heat in the back of my neck. And some headline or video or quote hits me just right, or I guess we should say just wrong. And suddenly I'm gone. Not physically, of course. I'm still sitting there with the phone in my hand, but inside I'm running or arguing or gripping the wheel of a car that's already off the road. That's when this old phrase comes back to me. Something I read many years ago, but didn't fully understand until now, if we want to believe that I do understand it now. But it says, the first arrow is pain. The second is the one we shoot at ourselves. It's a Buddhist story, thousands of years old. It's a simple image. Someone walking through the forest gets struck by an arrow. And that's the first one. Pain, fear, and shock. But then, the story says, most of us make it worse. We fire another arrow. We replay it, reimagine it, and blame ourselves or someone else. We twist the wound until it becomes our whole world. We can't always stop the first arrow, of course, but we do decide if we pick up the second. It's really a teaching about attention, about not multiplying harm by reacting to it with more harm. And I think about how many arrows we walk around with these days, how often we're hit, then hit again by our own reaction. The first arrow might be something real. Violence, loss, uncertainty, fear. The second is what happens after. The endless scroll, the late night spiral, the story that everything's falling apart. That's the one that breaks us. The point isn't to shut down or to stop caring. Maybe a good Freudian slip there, carrying. But it is to stay human. To notice where the arrow ends and your response begins. To pause long enough to choose what comes next. And lately I've been trying something small. When something hits me hard, I ask myself, is this the first arrow? Or am I holding the second? If I'm about to fire it, I try to stop. And just try to stop for one breath. Or 4 counts in, 6 counts out. Or longer, if I need it. And then I do one thing that steadies me. I could send a message to someone I trust. I could turn off the feed, usually a good idea. Or I could set out a book instead of the phone. Also, usually a very good idea. Could even plan one act for the morning that lives inside my control. And none of this fixes the world, but it stops the bleeding at that moment. I do remember one night a few months back, a news alert about a campus protest popped up on my phone. Students, police, cameras, one clip led to another, each one pulling me in deeper. Before I knew it, I wasn't reading anymore, I was reacting. Building a story in my head about how broken everything was, how far gone we'd become, how hopeless it all felt. And after a while, I realized I hadn't moved. My shoulders were tense and my breath was shallow, and none of it was helping anyone. That was the second arrow. So I turned the phone over, not from wisdom, just from exhaustion. Something I know a lot of you are feeling right now because I hear from folks about how exhausted they are by everything a lot. And in that moment, I texted a friend who'd been there and just said, thinking of you, do you need anything? I set out my shoes for the next morning and planned to walk over to the library, as you might know by now, one of my favorite places. And I thought maybe I'd talk with the woman behind the desk who always remembers my name. So these steps weren't heroic, but they were very real, and they felt real. Like choosing not to twist the wound. Before I forget, if these reflections matter to you, if they help you breathe easier or see things more clearly, I hope you'll help keep making them, or help me keep making them. But we are all producing this together in a way. This podcast, like everything I make, is offered as a gift. No paywalls, no ads, just something made with care in the hope that it finds the people who need it. But it does take time and energy and real resources to keep going. So if you're in a position to help sustain the work, you can do that at dancoyle.com. That's DANCOYLE.com. If you want to dedicate a future story to someone, you can do that by going to dancoyle.com/storylantern. And if you'd like to have a virtual face-to-face moment, I'm hosting what I'm calling a Zoom Salon on Thursday, November 6th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's an intentionally small group, just 8 people plus me, for about 30 minutes. And it's a space where I will bring a reading or a few thoughts to kick things off, but it gives all of us a space to share stories like these and to think together about what they ask of us. And so if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, you want to go to dancoyle.com/Zoom Salons. That's ZOOMSALONS. dancoyle.com/Zoom Salons. Plug it into your phone. There's an easy form to fill out, and I will confirm your spot with you. At the time of recording this, there are 6 of 8 spots still open. So just know that once they're taken, this one will be considered full. The other thing is I will put that link in the show notes or in the description. So depending on where you're listening to this, it's either called the description or the show notes, I think. All right, back to what we're talking about today. I think about that second arrow a lot lately. How many of us are walking around with wounds we didn't ask for, like grief that's very fresh or fear that's very real, and the aforementioned fatigue of living in a world that never seems to slow down. We can't stop every hit, but we can stop adding to it. And maybe that's where something starts to heal. Not out there, but in here. And hopefully you know what I mean by in here. I picture an archer standing in an open field, and he's been struck, and it hurts. And his hand rests on the next arrow, but this time he doesn't lift the bow. He feels the urge to react, to fight, to spiral. But instead he stays still and breathes, and the arrow stays in the quiver. That's the beginning of something new. So when the first arrow lands tonight, maybe you'll reach for something else, such as a hand, or a breath, or a closing of the eyelids to pause. Just something that brings you back to yourself, and maybe, just maybe, to one another. I'm drawn to 2 things at the end of this. The one another that I just mentioned, which is, I think, the increasingly important sense of needing to build neighbor and community with those who literally live near us. And I'm also drawn to the breath or the pause. If you don't know what to do, if you can't seem to get a grip on it, the thing that always works for me doesn't mean it'll always work for you. Or I say that it always works now, and it strikes me that it will always work until suddenly it doesn't. But what has always worked for me, up until now at least, is the Thich Nhat Hanh. As you're breathing in, you think to yourself, I know that I am breathing in. And as you breathe out, you just think to yourself, I know that I am breathing out. Or you can simplify that to breathing in, breathing out, or you can simplify it even further to just in, out. All right, thank you for listening to this one. If it meant something to you, please pass it along to someone else who might enjoy it as well. And I will see you, or speak to you, or write to you in the next one.